All right. So I drew up this scale. Just kidding. I copied it off the internet and pasted it in here. Like any of you would have believed me. You've seen how I draw straight lines, right? Yeah, I couldn't draw this. Okay. So I'm trying to explain. I'm explaining why we can solve, why we can add and subtract equations. And I'm going to use this scale because if you remember, our scale and our equation are, the scale is a representation of an equation. And so I'm going to attempt to show you why it is that we can add and subtract equations. And I'm going to use an example. So let's say we have x plus y equals -1. And we also have x minus y equals 7. Okay, so if I were to put my first equation in the scale, right, I can say, well, x plus y. So I'm going to put x plus y on this side. And we see that x plus y is equal to -1. So over on this side, I have to put a -1. And as long as I keep, and because it's an equation, I need to keep my scale balanced. So it's equal. X plus y equals -1. We saw with our method using elimination, if I add those two equations, right? If I add x minus y equals 7, that would be the same thing as, okay, I'm adding x minus y to this side. And I'm adding x minus y to this side as well. But instead of putting x minus y on that side, I'm actually just going to add what it's equal to because it's equal to 7. Okay, so try and think about this. Think about, I don't know, picture apples and oranges or something. So x minus y is the same thing as 7. And so by adding it to one side of the scale, I have to add its equal to the other side of the scale so that the scale remains balanced. Okay, and that's why we can add and subtract. If we're adding something to the left-hand side, so in order to keep the scale balanced, because we can do anything we want to equations, we just have to make sure that the scale stays balanced. So if I'm adding an x minus y to the left-hand side, I have to add an x minus y to the right-hand side. But it doesn't have to look like x minus y, it just has to be equivalent to it. Okay, think like you have an 8-pound weight and an 8-pound bowling ball. Okay, they weigh the same, so if you put one on each side of the scale, it's going to keep the scale balanced. Even though they don't look the same, it's the same weight. Hopefully that makes sense. You don't absolutely have to understand why we can do this to be able to do it. It's just kind of, it's helpful to see math is logical, and the way it works, I mean, we have to follow the rules, and it's not that the rules are just these things that people made up. It's just that's the way the math works. It's the only way that the math makes sense. Okay, it has to make sense. So if we add weight to one side of the scale, we have to add weight to the other side of the scale, and it doesn't matter what that weight looks like as long as it's the same amount of weight. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, it's not essential that you understand that to be able to do the process. It's just helpful.